Civic students, this video is an instructional how-to video for Thursday and Friday, February 11th and 12th. For those of you who are in my A-Day classes, 3A and 4A, you already know that I'm going to be gone. For those of you in my 1B class, this is a video that if you're absent, you can use to figure out what exactly it is that we did during class. This may be a 10-minute video or so, so if you feel like you want to watch this before class, feel free to do so. So first of all, I have all the objectives you're going to need written into the most recent post. However, if you have questions during the day, I will be at a conference and I will have my computer and my cell phone with me. So it is just fine if you need to send me a message and ask for some help. Although I think my instructions are pretty straightforward. So for starters, I think it's kind of crazy that I still need to point this out, but it has been a problem. So on Schoology, when you look at my most recent update, you have to click Show More. If you don't, you're not going to see 90% of the instructions. So make sure to do that first. You have 4 objectives today. First of all, you are going to finalize your selection of an issue that your community is managing, good, bad, or neutral. Remember, you can find these in lots of different locations, city newsletters, local newspapers, by word of mouth with people, city council minutes, etc. That's the first objective. Second objective, you're going to spend some time looking more deeply into the history of your community using some resources I give you. Remember that the data you have collected thus far is going to be used to explain why that issue is being dealt with by your community. Again, think of the situation with the Baltimore curfew. There's a reason why they decided a curfew was necessary, just like there's a reason they need to decide on a smaller scale what your towns are doing. So keep that question in mind. Without your issue in number 1, you're not going to be able to do number 2 really very effectively. Objective number 3, you will use the census data I showed you last class to begin to understand how that can help us see and understand the issues. Number 4, with any remaining time, you can begin to collect images from the internet that will help you in your presentation. So first things first. As soon as you find your issue, and many of you already have, but as soon as you find your issue topic, what I'd really like you to do first, and frankly, for your own sake, you should make this your priority, you need to put in the comment section what that issue is. So, for example, if I said that my issue was related to a new high school being built in Hector, Minnesota, the town that I was showing you in class where I grew up. Obviously, that's going to be a significant news, and I have some expertise in Hector, and so I should be able to explain why it is that that's happening. Could be because there's more kids are moving in. It could be because we've combined with another town, like I talked about in class. That's a fake story, but it's an example of how that might be important to understand. So, as soon as you get your issue, first thing you need to do is post it in the comments. If you're not the first one to post, if you have an issue that someone else chose, I may require you to work on and finding a new issue. The sooner you post, the better off you are. So, next thing you're going to do is you're going to spend some time looking in more deeply into the history of your community using resources. There's lots of resources you can use. Your city websites are a great starting point. Google is a great starting point. The other big thing I'm going to show you is an image site I showed you in class. And that is called What Was There? And that is this link right here. So if you click on that link, the What Was There app is going to open. And it looks like this. And if you enter your city, I actually haven't tried this yet, but I'm going to try Hector, Minnesota. I'm going to add the zip code just in case. We'll see if this works. Haven't actually done this with my city yet. Maybe not. Oh, okay. Couldn't find it initially, and now it found it when I just used the zip code. So when the map loads, you're going to see a series of orange dots pop up. And when a series of orange dots pop up, like you can see there, those are all historical locations. So let me make this sense to you. So as I can see, unfortunately, there aren't any in Hector. But let's say, for example, I lived in the city of Hutchinson, which was nearby. That relates to situation in geography. If I click on the number 5, I can zoom in and I can look at that location. And it's got multiple orange tabs. And if I click on that, I can see a significant image at that spot in my city. And I don't know what this place is because I didn't grow up in Hutchinson. But for many of you, let's say we look at Forest Lake. There are going to be significant landmarks. So for example, I can click on 14 here in Forest Lake. There are 5 major pictures. This is right where the roundabout currently is. And I can see what the roundabout used to look like. So it's pretty neat, pretty cool. If you ever wanted to save these images, you can either screenshot them or you can look at the photo details and you can save the image. Okay, so that's really neat. There's lots and lots and lots of different images. The bigger your city is, the more significant those images will be. This is what used to be in the roundabout. In any case, use that tool wisely. Like any tool, please don't get lost in it. Stay focused. So I'm going to close. So I've already closed that tab. I just finished using the What Was There application. And now I'm looking at the next objective, or the third objective. You will use the census data I showed you to begin to understand how that can help us see the issues. So let's say, for example, that my issue in Hector was the building of a new high school. Census data can show us a lot about why that might be the case. So first thing you need to do, of course, is get your census data back up. That is census data link is the same one I gave you down below here. Okay, so click on that link right there, and you will see the same familiar resource pop up. So I'm going to search Hector City, Minnesota. Remember, don't have township if you don't intend to look for the township. And I've got all this population data. I need to go into some of the tables. And I'm going to look at the population. And I'm going to look at the population chart. This is just an example. Okay? So in Hector, I have all that information. I have provided you a tool to make some graphs from this data. So if you go back to Schoology and you click on the next link, which says population pyramid copy, click on that link and a new document on Google Docs is going to open. It's going to look like this. Okay? Now, you personally cannot edit any of this information, but I can, because obviously I own it. But if you go, the first thing you need to do to be able to edit this is go to File, Make a Copy. And as soon as that pops up, you should save it, and then you'll have your own population pyramid. The instructions here are very, very clear. But what this is going to allow you to do is to see what the breakup of ages are in your particular town. So this population pyramid will show the old versus the young people in your particular city. So what I can do is I can take the census data from the fact finder, and I can literally just go in and type those individual numbers down and make sure that each of these ages match up with the individual settings in the Google Doc. So if you're not following this, you might need just a little bit of help from your classmates. But if you look at the instructions very carefully, it really shouldn't be all that hard. So I'm going to jot these numbers down quick so that I can show you exactly what it's going to look like. So just give me one quick moment. So now that I've jotted those numbers down, I can take those numbers from Hector and I can just type those in here. It is extremely important that you do not touch these cells. I can't make it any more clear. Only switch the yellow numbers on this particular column. You don't even need to enter the population because that's a formula. So if you type this in, you're going to see the graph automatically change. Most of these numbers are still accurate for Hector from last year, but I want to make sure that you see how these are different. So if you were to type these in, you will see this data show up for Hector. So again, give me a quick moment to make sure this information is typed in properly, and we will go from there. So what this is going to show you is the age of your population relative to how many people there are in each age group. So that's 1,151. If that number doesn't equal the number that you have as a population in the census data, then obviously you've done something wrong. So I copy these numbers over into the other number. So what does this population pyramid actually tell us? It can tell us which age groups are younger or older. So for example, you can see there is a pretty large chunk of people who are under the age of 20. And then there are very few 25 to 40-year-olds. That tells us something about Hector. I'm not going to tell you what that is, but I want you to think about that. Then there's a lot of people who are in their late 50s and early 60s. And then there's a big chunk of people who are 85 and older. That tells us something about an area. But let's pretend, just so you can see how this graph works, let's pretend that there is a lot more new children in Hector. And I decide to put this as 100. You can see that the graph automatically shifted. Make sure you understand how that works. Now, of course, this is just for Hector. This is one tool you can use. There are, and when you want to save this image, you're going to want to change the title, and then you can click this down arrow and you can save the image. So that should be pretty straightforward. Then there's also the population by gender. You can take that information and you can go back to the census data, and you can scroll down and you can see the male population. So 563, and female population is 588. Sometimes that is going to create a huge difference in your graph over on the other page. Sometimes it's not going to create a very big change at all, but you can just plug those numbers in these yellow cells. Now they're yellow. So let's say there was 1,000 males and only so many females. That will show you that there is a correlation here that might tell us something about issues that Hector is dealing with. And last but not least, you can look at the race and gender graph. And you can find that in the census data as well. And you can put these individual groups into your chart, and it will create this chart for you as well. Not that race is the only thing that is important in terms of knowing the types of people that live in your community. But understanding that, as you can see here in Hector, the extreme lack of diversity, that might tell us something about the issue that we have in mind. So you can click back on American Fact Finder, and you can see, if you scroll down far enough, they have all of these breakdowns in race as well. So that's very, very clear. You could also continue moving down, and you can say you could create your own graphs on the total population, households, how many spouses and children there are, how many unmarried people there are, how households look like. You can go down here and say how many family households, how many people with children under 18, how many husband-wife families, how many divorced families are there. You could look at housing occupancy. You can look at housing tenure. And that's, remember, folks, that this is just that one piece on Hector. You can look at business and industry. You can look at age. You can look at government. You can look at housing. You can look at income. There is so much information that you can get from this site to help you explain your issue. I'd really encourage you to dig deep, try to figure out information you can use. If you happen to finish, which again, if you're at this point in the video, what you're already preparing to do is you've already put your issue on your on Schoology in a comment. You've already spent some time looking for history and answering these 3 questions. You've already used the census data. If you have any extra time, start collecting images. You may have to start taking those on your own as well, but you probably have already bumped into a lot of images that will help you explain your issue. So I know this video is long, I apologize, but it should be way more than enough information in order to fulfill a class period and to get some work done on this particular issue. We'll talk about this again next week, but for now, I'll sign off and make sure that you are getting done what you need to get done on Thursday and Friday. Thanks.